Hi everyone, I'm going to talk about interval notation basics today. This is on page 29 of your workbook. So this is important in 171 because you are going to talk about the domain and range of functions, and you are going to use interval notation to specify the sets or intervals of numbers that are solutions. So here we go, interval notation. So we start with the number line, which is a line. We've got positive numbers going to the right and negative numbers going to the left. The left negative numbers approach negative infinity, whereas the positive numbers approach positive infinity. And the number line goes on forever in both directions. So when we talk about the set of every single number in the entire world, we call them all real numbers. So interval notation indicates a range or a set of numbers or an interval of numbers. Again, in Math 171, it's used to specify the domain and the range of a function and the solutions to an inequality. So here are the basics. We write the intervals from left to right just like we read. The smallest value is on the left, the largest value is on the right, and there's always a comma separating the values. So back in the day when you learned about inequalities, you learned about less than or greater than a number. That means you don't include the number in the solution. So when you say that m is greater than 9, we are talking about all the numbers bigger than 9, like 9.1 or 9.01, anything remotely bigger than 9 and greater. And when we graph this, we would use an open dot to show that we don't include 9 and we shade everything greater than. Well, in interval notation, we indicate the same thing except we use parentheses to show that the answer is excluded. So we would use brackets when you want to say less than or greater than. Similarly, we have less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. And when we're using a number line, we use a closed dot to show that that number is included. In interval notation, we use brackets to show that the answer is included. Okay, we also call those the endpoints. So let's look at some examples. So write z is greater than or equal to 4 in interval notation. Well, we are including 4 as the smallest number, and we want everything bigger than 4, so everything going to positive infinity. We want to include the 4, but infinity is not really a number, it's just as big as you can get, so we use parentheses always for positive and negative infinity. So we call this solution the set of all numbers from 4 up to infinity. All right, so our next example write 3 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 9. So we're going to use two different symbols. So 3 is the smallest value, and we're not going to include 3. Colin, can you stop, buddy? I'm doing this in real time at home. But we do want to include 9. That is included. So we are going to use brackets for 9. Now, if we were to graph this on the number line, 3 would be our smallest value, and we would use an open dot. 9 would be our greatest value, and we want to include 9, and then our solutions are every single value in between. I forgot to graph number 1. So this would show that 4 is our smallest value, and we want to include it, and we include everything all the way up to positive infinity. All right, moving right along. So sometimes there are gaps. In this case, x could be less than or equal to -1 or greater than 5. So all the numbers in between are not included. So we call that a whole, or we can also use this symbol for union, or. So we get to use two different intervals. So to show x is less than or equal to 1, we say everything less than or equal to -1 is negative infinity up to -1, and we're going to include that. Or we use the big U, the union symbol. X is greater than 5, so 5 is the smallest value, and we are not including 5 all the way up to positive infinity. And we are not going to include infinity. So just as a note, always use parentheses with positive, negative infinity, and positive infinity. It's not an actual value, so you can't include it. All right, so that is a little bit on interval notation.